Welcome to my series about old Chopin's music. Today I open the new genre, Scherzos. As you maybe know, Chopin wrote 4 scherzos, and the first, which we have today, he wrote probably when he was only 20 years old, or at least he had some ideas for this piece. Because unfortunately we don't know exactly when he composed the first scherzo, because the manuscript got lost. But all the signs and all the proofs and the message that this piece has tells us and shows us that most likely the piece was written in around 1830, between 1830 and 1831, when Chopin just left Poland. And he was staying in Vienna for a few months, and when he was there in Poland, uprising against Russia and Russian occupancy started. People were fighting for the independence. And this piece exactly describes Chopin's feelings, and was written also at the same time when this famous revolutionary etude exactly when this etude was written. Just to give you some example of Chopin's letters which he wrote when he was in Vienna. I mean, I'm sure if we really use our imagination, we can absolutely understand a young 20 years old man, who left his family, his friends, his parents, his homeland, who is abroad, and then the war is in his country. Nobody would like to be in his situation. Nowadays it's very hard to imagine. Thanks God we don't have really war. Well, we have some war in the world, but not all over. We don't have war in Poland, and probably we don't understand really. But to really understand this piece and play it well and listen to it with the understanding, we need to know how desperate Chopin was. So he writes to his friends something like this: if I could, this is the quotation, if I could, I would move all the tones that my blind, furious, unfettered feelings would incite. Incite, I don't know if you know the word, it's something like call. So the feelings that would call would... Chopin wanted to use all the tones, all the desperate, furious tones of music. We talk about music now. Another very very sincere letter of Chopin. I curse the moment I left. In the salon I pretend to be calm, but on returning home I fulminate at the piano. Fulminate at the piano. I don't know, again, this is the word, maybe not all of you, if you are not British or American, maybe you don't understand. Fulminate. In Polish, it's because he wrote it in Polish. The word takes its origin in Polish from the lightning, when we have a storm and it's a lightning, and Chopin, it's like, I put lightnings on the piano. That's the easiest English for those of you who don't understand. So he puts the lightnings on the piano, makes the storm on the piano. He writes then, I return, I play, I cry, I laugh, I go to bed, put out the light and dream always of you. And now it's very important again. Everything I've seen thus far abroad seems to me unbearable and only makes me long for home. For those blissful moments which I couldn't appreciate, it seems like a dream. it seems like a dream that I'm with you, and what I hear is just a dream, writes Chopin. Well, this is very sad, but so is Chopin's music, dramatic. He would have never written such a piece if not the history of Poland and if not the times that he was living. So in one way, although it's quite cruel, we should be thankful for what happened. We, listeners, because this music touches deeply our hearts. It touches us and it makes us cry. It makes us understand the suffering of a man. That's why we like to listen to it, because we feel understood when we have bad moments. This is Chopin. Practically all his music, or almost all his music, is about this, is inspired by this. That's why it's so human. That's why we love it so much. That's why you are here listening to my analysis, and that's why I'm here to do it for you. Scherzo. Well, as I said at the beginning, Scherzo, a joke. Let's start from some Beethoven Scherzo, just for you to know what was the origin. Chopin knew, and I have a proof. We have a proof. Chopin played this very Beethoven sonata. Chopin had in his repertoire. We know it for sure, and so he knew this Scherzo at least. Listen. The first part, and then we have the trio, which is and so on. The trio, which is the middle part of the Scherzo, and then the Scherzo, the first part, comes back. This is very important because Chopin, as a neoclassical composer, he didn't want to shock and he didn't want to change the structure. He was just enriching the structure which Beethoven was already using. Scherzo, as a piece of music like we know by Chopin, didn't practically exist before him, because Beethoven wrote scherzos as a part of a bigger form, sonata or symphony, one of the movements. So usually the third part, the third movement. Chopin, of course, when he wrote his sonatas, and I'm going to talk about it soon, he also writes a scherzo inside the sonata. So altogether, Chopin wrote 6 scherzos for solo piano. And we have 2 things that the scherzo must have. One is, as I said, the structure A, B, A, when the B is the trio. And the second is that the scherzo should be on 3, because it comes from the minuet, which was before the scherzo, was the middle movement, middle part of the sonata or symphony. When Mozart wrote minuets, Beethoven destroyed the minuet and he used scherzo. But usually scherzos were joking, light, funny, just like you heard. Well, and here comes the question, why Chopin writes such a music? At the beginning. And do we hear the joke? Do we hear the scherzo? Do we hear funny? Do we want to laugh? On the contrary. Why scherzo? Well, I strongly recommend all of you to think about it, to contemplate it. Of course, if you want. But I did a lot. I'm a composer myself. Sometimes I write music. Well, I still didn't publish my pieces, but probably one day I will. When I write music, I always want to say something. I always want to express myself. Chopin was exactly the same. But to answer the question why he decided to call this piece a scherzo, because I know why he wrote the piece. He wanted to express his desperate feelings, his dramatic feelings. But why call it a scherzo? I don't know. Probably the joke itself is that this piece is called a scherzo. It's there's a lot of irony. It's very ironic. It's very wicked. It's a dark humor. Probably Chopin shows us that in his mental condition, he can't joke. He cannot think about anything happy. And that's why a scherzo. Such a dramatic piece. Let's listen to the beginning. The beginning, as we saw, as we've heard just now, we have two very dramatic chords. This, at that time, at the first part of the 19th century, to start the piece like this, it was such a shock for people, like now it would be for us something like this. Yes, my friends, that's exactly how Chopin wanted it to be. We should know it because he could not write something like this. Maybe in the 20th century, if he were born 100 years later, maybe he wrote such a piece like I just presented for you. But we as pianists, we must feel it. We have to. We as listeners, we must know that these two chords are just so shocking and full of pain, full of passion, full of drama. Drama. Pure drama. After which we have some kind of, I don't know, escape, a run, very fast and very messy music. And something that we would never say that Chopin was the author, because he never wrote such a music. We don't know Chopin as this kind of music. So only by understanding why he wrote it and when he wrote it, we can understand why this music is so weird, why this music is so dramatic, and why this makes us feel so bad. Well, so frustrated. Let's analyze it. First of all, when we listen to it, we feel, oh, so virtuoso, so difficult, so fantastic technique, such a fantastic technique, and most of all, messy and dramatic. But we can't really catch any melody or anything like this. This is just escaping or run or some kind of waves. But for me, it is like a genius way of comparing music to painting. If you are interested in the paintings, you know very well that we can't come too close to the painting, because then we don't see the painting, the whole. We only can see some little part of it, and we don't really understand the whole, because we see only the small part. The bigger painting it is, the farther we have to go. We have to step back to see and to understand. This is exactly the same here. If we listen to this piece in a very slow tempo, we don't understand it at all, because we only see the details. first part small a, we can call it. Well, is it music? Well, this is like a technical exercise. We don't see phrases, we don't see melody, we don't hear anything. When we play it faster, very fast, like Chopin wrote, presto con fuoco, so presto, fast, with a fire. Well, fire, so war, right? Then we can catch the phrases, and now I will describe it for you. We have the first sentence, the first musical sentence is constructed in a typical Chopin way. Short, short, long. Let's listen. Short, short, and long. Yes? And then the second phrase, the second sentence is the same. Short, another, and then long. And then this is the first longer part, and then we have the answer for that. Answer full of dissonances, full of the chords which makes us feel pain. Now, until here, when we go down, when we go to the dark part of the keyboard, there are three very important notes that emerge from this whole mess. And then again. And then the third time, three notes, pam, pam, pam. First in the bass, then in the whole keyboard. Full of drama. A little bit like a Beethovenian motif, we could say, you know. Well, later we also will hear it in this piece. There is this kind of motif. But so this is the whole part, the fast part. Let's call it a fast part. So when you try to listen it like this, then it's not as messy for you as it was before, as I suppose. If you are not a musician, of course, because if you are a musician, then there is no problem. But if you are not, then you should try to listen like 1, 2, like listen, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then the answer. And now. And then the answer. Okay, so now let's listen without me talking. Have a slow part as a kind of contrast, the part which is full of sadness and sorrow, and which have a very clear dialogue between two hands. Left hand, which is strong and like a fate, and right hand, which begs for mercy. Just listen to this dialogue. Begging for mercy and answer of the fate. Again, begging for mercy and left hand. Ta-ta-ta-tam, ta-ta-ta-tam, ta-ta-ta-tam. Fate, my friends. And then a very sad. Again, three notes, 1, 2, 3, going down, which we had before. So, why I show it for you? Because I want you to see how close Chopin is with Beethoven, in scherzos especially. Normally we say that Chopin was much closer to Mozart than to Beethoven. And this is true. But not really in scherzos. In scherzos, Chopin is constructing the music the way Beethoven did, using very short motifs, very short phrases, and playing with them, changing them a little, and making a big piece out of very little short moments. This is genius. It is. Okay, so this is we had a fast part, then we had a short part with the dialogue. Then we again have a fast part, but it's very unpredictable because everything ends. And it should be Chopin, but it's not. Instead, first we have repetition of all what we've heard at the beginning, except these first two chords, because these chords are not repeated. So we have the fast and slow, and then we can call the second fast part, so like A1, A prime, A1. And this second part is very fast and it seems extremely difficult, but it's not. In fact, I can tell you as a pianist, it's not that difficult as it seems to be. Why? Because it's written in a very clever, extremely clever way. We have very fast notes, well, exactly 6 notes in one bar, but the 6 notes are split it into 3 and 3. So we have 3 in the left hand and 3 in the right hand, and 3 in the left hand and 3 in the right hand, and they play like this all the time. I can show it to you in a slow tempo, and especially here, look. So all the pianist has to be able to play is 3 fast notes. It's much easier than 6, of course. And of course, I'm joking a little because it's not easy to play. But generally speaking, it's easier than it seems. And then other pieces when we have to play very long, like for example, Etude number 1. We have to play fast all the time. Here we doesn't, but this is not a etude, it's a scherzo. It's a piece of music which is a piece of art, not only a technical exercise. So here we come back to the run, to the escape, and here is something like we try to run, but we can't. 2 times we try, and finally, the 3rd time, we can run. Listen, first time, stop, 2nd time, and 3rd time finally, again, and now here we start to reach the climax. With the same technique, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 in the left, 3 in the right. We reach the climax which Chopin writes here. Forte, fortissimo, possibile. So in Italian it means as loud as possibly you can. Just bang the piano, writes Chopin. Of course, because this is a desperate moment. And this motif you should remember. 4 notes going down, 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 down. When you hear this motif, always this is just before part A, because here part A comes again. But when you listen to the whole piece very fast, maybe you don't catch it, that it's the beginning. And I think it's worth to know that we are at the beginning of the piece. how it sounds in the whole. Let's listen to part A1 and then going into part A. Because then Chopin repeats part A again, then part B slow, so fast, slow, then again A1, then again A, again B, and then something else. So it's all the time the same, you know. This is the reason why when I was much younger, I didn't like this piece. I didn't want to play because I said, oh, it's boring, it's all the time the same, it's too much the same music. Well, now I understand Chopin, but I must admit that it is a kind of minimalistic way of composing the piece. But still, it is full of passion and full of very true, sincere feelings. Let's listen to part A1 and then part A, the beginning of part A. And part B. Part A1 again. It's very easy to catch because it's the moment when we stop. We start run and we stop. This is always part A1. Stop. Stop. And again. Part B again. And now we come to the trio and listen to this magic modulation. So Chopin is changing the world, changing the color. Such a beautiful moment. And we are in the trio now. So the middle part of Scherzo. Such a contrasting moment. And here is what I quoted you, the letter of Chopin when he wrote that he is dreaming. He's missing, longing for his country. He's dreaming that he's inside, in his country. Here it is exactly that. And we can't help thinking about it. We can't find another image. Why? Simply because in this middle, beautiful, slow part, we have two very important quotations, which Chopin is using. Let's listen first, and then I tell you. second. And then we come back to the beginning. Yes, it's a very simple melody. And let me tell you that practically all Polish people knows this melody, or almost all, simply because this is our very famous Polish Christmas carol called Lulajże Jezuniu, which is hard to translate in English, but in fact it's a lullaby. Lulajże, even the Polish word lulajże, lullaby, it means lulajże, it means sleep. Well, in a kind of slang, we can say, the folk. Jezuniu means Jesus, young little Jesus. So sleep little Jesus, that's how we can call it. Very beautiful lullaby, Christmas carol, which Chopin for sure knew very well, because his family, as Christian family, they were singing in the Christmas Eve and the Christmas time together. His mother was singing to him. So what is he doing here? He quotes this beautiful Christmas carol, but it's not exactly the whole, it's not exactly quotation. Chopin is enriching this melody with his own insights, so it's more like a symbol, but a very clear symbol. Let me play for you the original Christmas carol. Yes, so we are singing this, and here we have this is the first. The second quotation, which comes the second melody here. Now, there should be, I don't know if you watched my video about Polonaise Fantasy, Opus 61, so a very late piece written more than 20 years after this one. There is also a very long middle part when Chopin is also using quotations. And he is using one quotation of the folk song which his mother was singing to him when he was a young little boy. This. And then he is also quoting his own song which he wrote when he was 17, when he was deeply in love with the opera singer. He wrote it for her. It was their code, the symbol of their love. It's called Maiden's Wish. And here we have Chopin in Scherzo in Vienna, lonely, thinking about her. Right, and we have this is extremely touching. Thinking about this young 20 years old boy in such a disaster in his life and such a dramatic turning point of his life, in fact. When he left Poland, he never could come back. Poland was in war, his friends were dying, he was alone. Christmas, it was exactly Christmas, December. And he writes such a dramatic music. This is, my friends, the key to the Scherzo. And when we understand when it was written, why it was written, and why the middle part has these quotations, when we listen to this piece, we feel much closer to Chopin's heart. And we almost can feel like him. We understand. Just to make the long story short, when this Christmas carol ends, we, with in a very brutal way, come back to part A. Brutal because Chopin again is banging the piano like at the beginning. And listen to this bridge to part A. Yes, that's the way. And again, Chopin's real feelings for us in 2021, in the year 2021, it should be written like this. And so on. So the whole fast and slow and fast and slow comes back. It's a little shorter than the first time. But when we arrive to this moment, when in the first time Chopin connected part A with part B, do you remember? A dream. We fall asleep and we have the lullaby. In the second time, at exactly the same moment and very similar notes, but we are not at all in the dream. We come to coda, so to the final part of the piece. And instead of this dreamy, we have like this, listen. And then the coda. Can it be more dramatic music? Again, at the end we have three forte, forte, fortissimo, possibile, and an accent. So just banging the piano very much. Coda is very fast, of course we can hear it, but let's analyze it. We start from running up to the keyboard to the highest part of the keyboard. When we reach the highest part of the keyboard, the left hand is banging the piano with the fist. Like this. Chopin is doing something like this. I show you this, listen. And now this moment. In the Romantic in 1830, it was almost like I played not for you. So when we reach the bass, then we have the most dramatic moment of all the scherzo. We will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, or well, 10 times repeated the helpless and furious banging the piano like this. Completely devastating. I can picture Chopin crying and furious, just like he wrote in the letter. It can't be more, my friends. Can't be. Listen. And then we have the scale going up. Chromatic scale, so every single key, every key I have to play black and white, black and white. At the end. Yes, it doesn't really sound like Chopin, because he was very sensitive, delicate, romantic person. So how bad he had to feel to write such a music. And with this open question, I end this very dramatic episode. I will not play it for you the whole. In fact, I never played this piece in public, and I don't know if I will soon, because for me, I'm also a very sensitive player. For me, it's impossible to control myself with such emotions like this. It's always a question to be perfect or to be emotional in such a piece. When I want to transmit exactly what Chopin wanted to transmit, there is no space and no place for a control. So to play it in public is a great challenge. Maybe one day I will, but today I just leave you with, as I say, with this open question, and I think we can think about so many things after this episode, about why this is a scherzo, about how Chopin really felt, and many things. Thank you very much, and bye bye. Take care.